No one thought she could do it. Madison Blake muttered under her breath as she adjusted her black apron, her hands steady despite the hum of panic around the boardroom. The translator was late. 30 investors, some of the most influential in Manhattan, shifted uneasily, whispering in confusion. Ryan Caldwell, the CEO whose sharp gray eyes usually commanded absolute attention, ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, his jaw tight. He glanced at the empty chair where the translator should have been, tension coiling in the room like a spring. Madison stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "I can handle this." Gasps rippled across the table. The room had underestimated her, again. Papers shuffled, phones clicked, and a murmur of disbelief floated around the polished mahogany table. Ryan's gaze sharpened, scrutinizing her with a mix of incredulity and reluctant curiosity. "You're sure?" he asked, his tone a careful balance between challenge and disbelief. Madison nodded once, eyes scanning the contracts, the investors, catching the subtle inflections in the foreign languages that none of the executives could. Her previous experience in international studies, long abandoned for family obligations, now rose to the surface instinctively. She read each word, each gesture, translating not just the literal meanings but the subtleties of negotiation that could make or break the deal. Ryan watched as her calm precision turned confusion into clarity. Sentences she spoke flowed like music, effortless yet commanding, correcting miscommunications, softening tensions, translating with such nuance that the investors leaned in, captivated. Their whispered astonishments barely reached the edges of her awareness as Madison maintained her focus, a quiet force amid the storm. Ryan's skepticism wavered. The woman he had casually dismissed as a mere waitress now held the room's attention with effortless authority. He felt a strange mixture of admiration and unease, his own confidence challenged by her composure. Madison moved among the participants with quiet efficiency, her words precise, her tone unwavering, each phrase calibrated to maintain respect and authority, bridging the gap between cultures, between power and humility. The meeting flowed seamlessly, the tension melting, agreements forming, all guided by her hands and voice. She smiled faintly when a senior investor leaned forward and whispered, "Who is she?" Madison's eyes flicked toward Ryan, conveying nothing yet revealing everything about the depths of her skill and intelligence. Ryan's lips pressed into a thin line, a subtle acknowledgement that the quiet waitress had upended his expectations, rewriting the power dynamic in the room without raising her voice. As the final agreement was signed, Madison stepped back, letting the room absorb what had just transpired, leaving a silence heavy with respect and a curiosity that Ryan knew would linger long after she returned to the background. And as she straightened the papers, her small smile hinted at untold stories, untapped brilliance, and a presence that would not be forgotten, an unspoken promise that this was only the beginning. Madison stepped back from the table, letting the investors settle into the rhythm she had established, her presence still commanding the room without a single raised voice. She glanced at Ryan Caldwell, whose eyes were fixed on her with a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect, as if he were seeing her for the first time beyond the uniform and apron. The room, once tense with the absence of a translator, now moved smoothly, each participant following the thread of her interpretation as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Madison caught the subtle cues, the pauses, the hesitations of the clients, weaving their intent into words that made sense, bridging gaps that had threatened to unravel the entire negotiation. She adjusted the order of responses, softening moments that could have been confrontational and emphasizing points that would encourage consensus, all with a precision that seemed effortless. Ryan leaned back slightly in his chair, exhaling slowly, acknowledging silently that his assumptions about her had been entirely wrong. As the meeting progressed, he began to notice other things: the confidence in her posture, the calm determination in her blue eyes, the way she moved from one side of the table to the other with quiet authority. She was not merely translating words. She was orchestrating the flow of ideas, guiding discussions, and ensuring that everyone felt heard while keeping the core objectives of the negotiation intact. Madison's voice remained steady, articulate, and measured, every sentence perfectly timed to convey clarity and comprehension. Investors who had been skeptical or distracted now followed her cues, nodding, jotting notes, engaging more openly than they had at any point since the meeting began. Ryan caught himself noting how seamlessly she had turned a potential disaster into an opportunity, how her quiet intelligence had transformed the energy of the room. She paused briefly, allowing the clients to absorb a particularly complex concept, and then added a subtle clarification that preemptively addressed a potential misunderstanding, her insight keeping the meeting on track. Madison's hands moved with purpose as she gestured to the documents, highlighting key points, and Ryan found himself watching her carefully, realizing that the woman who had been a background presence in his office hours ago now held the room in a way he had never seen before. The investors finished their questions, their respect for her apparent expertise evident in the way they leaned forward, waiting for her to respond rather than the CEO. Ryan met her gaze once more, and in that silent exchange, he acknowledged that his estimation of people based on appearance had failed spectacularly. Madison nodded once, almost imperceptibly, a quiet smile playing on her lips, signaling both accomplishment and restraint, her demeanor unassuming yet undeniably powerful. The meeting concluded with handshakes, signatures, and a room full of impressed participants, yet Madison quietly gathered her papers, allowing the focus to return to the clients while she moved back to the side, her work done but her influence lingering. Ryan remained seated for a moment, absorbing the turn of events, a realization settling in that this was more than just a negotiation handled well. It was a display of intellect, composure, and presence that could not be ignored, and he could not help but wonder what other quiet strengths this remarkable waitress possessed, leaving a promise of stories yet untold and challenges yet to come. As the last investors filed out of the boardroom, Madison Blake gathered the remaining documents with careful precision, her movements calm yet deliberate. Ryan Caldwell remained seated, his fingers drumming lightly on the polished wood of the conference table, eyes fixed on her as if trying to decipher the quiet confidence she carried effortlessly. The hum of the air conditioning and the faint clicks of heels against the marble floor were the only sounds in the now empty room. Yet the atmosphere felt charged, heavy with unspoken acknowledgement of the skill and intelligence Madison had displayed. She straightened the edges of the contracts, her blue eyes scanning each signature, each notation, silently reviewing the final agreements for accuracy. Ryan watched her from across the table, noting the way she moved with both grace and authority, the way she commanded attention without demanding it, and the subtle way her presence seemed to alter the energy of the entire room. He leaned back, exhaling slowly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips, realizing that his previous assumptions had been entirely misguided. Madison looked up briefly, catching his gaze, and offered a small, enigmatic nod, acknowledging the respect without a word, her silence speaking volumes. The soft rustle of paper filled the room as she finished gathering her materials, placing them neatly in a leather portfolio she carried with understated elegance. Ryan rose from his chair, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Manhattan skyline, his reflection mirrored against the glass, contemplating the chain of events that had unfolded over the past hour. He could still hear, in his mind, the clarity of her voice, the precise interpretation of complex terms, the confidence that had seemed to ripple through the room and settle every uncertainty. Madison followed quietly, maintaining a respectful distance, her posture composed, hands clasped loosely in front of her, yet the subtle confidence radiating from her made it clear she was more than just a background figure. Ryan turned slightly, his gaze meeting hers again, and for a brief moment, there was a silent exchange, a mutual recognition of intellect, capability, and quiet strength. He noted the faintest glint of satisfaction in her eyes, a hint that she was aware of the impact she had made, yet was careful not to boast or overstep, her professionalism immaculate. The room seemed to hold its breath as Ryan finally spoke, his tone measured, tinged with genuine curiosity. "Where did you learn to handle that with such finesse?" Madison met his eyes evenly, a calm smile on her lips, a combination of study and experience, nothing extraordinary, just paying attention when it matters most. Ryan nodded slowly, acknowledging her answer, but inwardly calculating the depth of skill and composure she had revealed in such a short span of time. As they walked toward the conference room door, Madison adjusted the strap of her portfolio, her expression serene yet alert, and Ryan realized that the quietest person in the room had commanded it entirely, leaving an indelible impression that would linger far beyond the end of the meeting. The faint hum of the city outside the glass windows filtered in, and Ryan knew that this encounter was only the beginning of something neither of them had anticipated, a prelude to a story that was far from over. The elevator ride down from the top floor felt unusually long to Madison Blake, though she kept her composure, fingers lightly resting on the leather strap of her portfolio. Ryan Caldwell followed silently, his mind replaying the negotiation, the precise wording, the subtle inflections Madison had caught, the way she had corrected errors before anyone else even noticed them. Outside, the city lights reflected on the polished glass walls, creating shifting patterns that danced across the elevator interior. Yet Madison's focus remained sharp, observing every movement, every glance in the mirrored surfaces. As they stepped out into the lobby, the sound of soft jazz from the hotel lounge mixed with the low hum of evening traffic, the contrast between the bustling city and the calm efficiency Madison carried with her striking. Ryan watched as she navigated through the crowd of guests and staff, her posture upright, shoulders relaxed but confident, each step measured, deliberate. He felt an unfamiliar curiosity building within him, the kind that could not be quelled by status or authority, a fascination with the quiet mastery she displayed. Madison adjusted the corners of the portfolio, checking that nothing had been misplaced, the faintest smile tugging at her lips as she recalled the fleeting expressions of shock and respect from the investors. Ryan approached the reception desk, his tone casual but controlled, inquiring about the client documents they needed for the follow-up, and Madison responded with clarity, her voice precise, the calmness underlying every word a stark contrast to the tension he had anticipated. She guided him toward the hotel lounge, pointing out the best seat with unobtrusive authority, noting the lighting, the placement of tables, the flow of staff movement, ensuring they would not be interrupted. Ryan could not help but notice the ease with which she assessed the environment, the way she predicted human behavior, subtly orchestrating interactions without any overt assertion of power. He studied her face, noting the calm focus, the slight narrowing of her eyes when evaluating the room, the quick yet deliberate gestures that indicated a mind always several steps ahead. Madison handed him the documents he requested, their fingers brushing briefly, and Ryan felt a spark of awareness that this encounter was not merely professional but revealing, a glimpse into a depth of intelligence and presence he had not expected. They settled into the lounge chairs, Madison keeping her posture impeccable, responding to questions with confidence and poise, her voice never raised, her explanations layered with insight that made complex matters seem simple. Ryan leaned back, absorbing the room, the people, and the subtle shifts Madison influenced with every movement and word. He realized that her quiet competence had transformed more than the negotiation. It had altered his perception, challenged assumptions, and left a lingering curiosity about the woman who had turned what could have been chaos into an ordered, confident display of intellect and grace. Madison glanced around one last time, her eyes meeting his, communicating assurance without a word, a silent understanding that the real story was only beginning, and Ryan knew that this was the first chapter in a sequence of moments that would continue to surprise, challenge, and reveal. Madison Blake leaned back slightly in her chair, her fingers brushing over the leather surface of the lounge table as she assessed the documents before her, yet her mind was equally focused on the subtle currents of conversation flowing around the room. Ryan Caldwell sat across from her, hands loosely folded, his usually commanding presence tempered by a quiet curiosity that had grown steadily since the meeting. The low hum of the city seeped in through the large windows, mixing with the faint clatter of glassware and muted chatter from nearby tables, but neither of them seemed disturbed by the background noise. Instead, it accentuated the calm precision Madison carried with her. She spoke, softly at first, translating a question from one of the international partners, carefully choosing each word, shaping the meaning with nuance, and Ryan found himself leaning in, captivated by the clarity and authority in her voice. Every sentence she delivered was measured, the pauses intentional, guiding the dialogue as though orchestrating a delicate symphony of communication. Madison noticed the subtle shifts in body language, the barely perceptible nods, the raised eyebrows, and she adjusted her phrasing on the fly, ensuring comprehension and maintaining a smooth flow that left the clients confident yet impressed. Ryan observed how effortlessly she commanded the attention of everyone in the room, turning what could have been confusion and miscommunication into a precise and effective exchange, his respect for her deepening with each passing minute. Madison handed a summary of key points to Ryan, her movements fluid and composed, and he realized that she had anticipated his needs before he even articulated them, her understanding of context and strategy evident in every interaction. The soft glow from the overhead lights cast a warm hue on her features, highlighting the intensity in her eyes. Yet there was no arrogance, only calm confidence that drew attention without demanding it. Ryan felt a subtle shift in the energy around him. The room that had once been filled with tension now seemed anchored by Madison's quiet authority. Her explanations, her corrections, and her guidance had not only facilitated understanding, but had also subtly altered the perception of everyone present, transforming the dynamic from one of hierarchy to collaboration. As the discussion wound down, Madison carefully organized the papers, her movements precise, deliberate, yet seemingly effortless, and Ryan could not help but note the way she balanced professionalism with a presence that was quietly commanding. He found himself wondering about the depth of her skills, the years of experience and knowledge that allowed a waitress to move a room so completely, and the unspoken potential she held beyond this moment. Madison glanced briefly at Ryan, the faintest curve of a smile acknowledging both the successful exchange and the subtle power she had wielded, a reminder that true influence could exist without overt authority, and that some of the most remarkable talents often resided in those least expected to command attention, leaving Ryan with a lingering sense of curiosity and anticipation for what she might reveal next. Ryan Caldwell walked alongside Madison Blake as they exited the lounge, the late evening streets of Manhattan glowing under the amber haze of streetlights and the occasional flash of headlights from passing taxis. Madison's steps were measured, confident, yet she moved with an ease that made the bustling city feel still, as if her presence carved out a space of calm in the chaos. Ryan adjusted his cufflinks, glancing at her from the corner of his eye, noting the subtle control she seemed to exert over every interaction, every movement, as if she had the room, the evening, and even him perfectly orchestrated. They passed a row of glass-fronted storefronts, reflections of their figures merging with the soft light, and Ryan felt an unfamiliar awareness of how sharp her instincts were, how her attention to detail extended beyond words into the unspoken cues of the environment. Madison checked the folds of her portfolio, her gaze scanning the passing pedestrians, reading body language, evaluating expressions, absorbing context without making a single unnecessary gesture. Ryan noticed the faintest curve of a smile on her lips, not for amusement, but for satisfaction in the work accomplished, a quiet pride that did not demand recognition, yet radiated strength. He found himself thinking about the negotiation, the calm authority with which she had taken control, and how effortlessly she had transformed tension into clarity, skepticism into trust. Madison paused at a crosswalk, assessing the flow of traffic, and Ryan noted how she had already calculated timing, movement, and space, guiding them safely across without a word. A cab honked in the distance, pedestrians shifted, but she remained a steady anchor in the movement of the city. As they approached the hotel entrance again, Madison handed Ryan a copy of the key documents, ensuring he had everything he needed while maintaining an awareness of surrounding staff and guests, adjusting her posture subtly to appear unobtrusive yet undeniably present. Ryan watched her, realizing that every detail she had managed, every observation and adjustment, had created not just a successful meeting, but a demonstration of intellect and presence that lingered beyond the room. Madison's blue eyes flicked toward him briefly, conveying competence, confidence, and an unspoken understanding of the impact she had created, leaving Ryan with a sense that the evening's events were only the first act of a story whose next chapters promised both intrigue and revelation. As they parted ways at the hotel lobby, Madison's quiet efficiency left a lasting impression. Her influence felt in the calm that remained in the room and in Ryan's mind. The lingering thought that she had reshaped his understanding of skill, intelligence, and the quiet strength of those who operate without spectacle but with undeniable authority. As Madison Blake stepped into the quiet hallway of the office tower, the echoes of the day's negotiations lingered, the polished marble floors reflecting the soft glow of recessed lighting. Ryan Caldwell followed closely, still processing the transformation he had witnessed, the way a simple waitress had not only navigated complex language barriers, but had done so with an authority that had shifted the entire atmosphere of the boardroom. Madison's movements were deliberate, each step measured, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the residual tension of a day filled with uncertainty and high stakes. She carried herself with a subtle confidence, a quiet strength that spoke louder than any words, her blue eyes scanning the surroundings, noting details others would overlook, a habitual alertness born of experience and intuition. Ryan observed her closely, struck by the juxtaposition of her gentle expression and the sharp precision in her actions. It was a combination that commanded respect without demanding it. They reached the reception desk where a junior associate was waiting with follow-up documents, and Madison accepted them with a graceful nod, organizing the materials efficiently, her gestures economical yet purposeful, communicating competence and control effortlessly. Ryan stepped aside, allowing her to lead, and in doing so, he felt an unfamiliar deference, an acknowledgement that the dynamics between them had subtly shifted, that her quiet mastery had redefined the perception of authority in the room. Madison glanced at him briefly, her gaze steady, conveying awareness of his observation without arrogance, and continued down the corridor with the poise of someone fully in command of both self and situation. The faint hum of the air circulation mingled with distant city sounds, creating a backdrop against which every detail of her actions seemed amplified. Her posture, her timing, the way she engaged with staff and materials, all executed with a precision that drew attention without demanding it. Ryan found himself reflecting on the unfolding realization that intelligence, composure, and decisiveness could exist in forms that defied expectation, and that influence did not always arrive with overt declarations, but could manifest in measured, deliberate, and unassuming ways. Madison paused at the doorway leading to the elevator, adjusting the strap of her portfolio, and offered a quiet, professional smile that held both assurance and subtle acknowledgement of the impact she had had on the day's events. Ryan's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer, the admiration tempered with curiosity, as he considered how a person so unassuming yet capable could so effortlessly command attention and respect. The elevator doors slid open, reflecting their images side by side, and as they stepped in, the ambient city light casting long shadows across the polished interior, Ryan felt a profound awareness that this was only a prelude, that Madison's influence and the lessons of the day would echo far beyond the confines of the office tower, leaving him with a quiet anticipation for the next chapter in a story that had only just begun to unfold. The soft click of the elevator doors closing behind Madison Blake and Ryan Caldwell created a quiet intimacy, a moment suspended in the flow of the evening. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the glass facade, reflecting the subtle tension that lingered between them, a mixture of professional respect and unspoken curiosity. Madison held her portfolio against her side, the edges crisp, her blue eyes scanning the reflection of the elevator interior as if measuring the balance of the moment. Ryan watched her closely, noting the way she carried herself, poised yet unassuming, every gesture precise, deliberate, and imbued with quiet authority. He could still hear the echoes of the boardroom, the confidence in her voice, the clarity of her translations, and the way she had managed not only the room but the perception of everyone in it. Madison shifted slightly, her posture unchanging, the faintest hint of a smile on her lips, signaling satisfaction with the day's work and a quiet awareness of her impact. Ryan found himself leaning against the polished elevator wall, processing how effortlessly she had commanded attention, how her presence alone had reshaped the dynamics of influence and respect without a single demand for recognition. The ambient hum of the elevator, the subtle clicks of the control panel, and the distant sounds of traffic outside created a backdrop against which every detail of her presence was amplified. The tilt of her head as she considered a thought, the controlled movement of her hands, the careful pacing of her speech that had earlier orchestrated an entire negotiation seamlessly. He realized that her intelligence was not loud, not flashy, yet it had a gravity that drew the room, and now him, into alignment with her focus. Madison glanced at him briefly, catching his reflection in the mirrored elevator panel, her eyes conveying comprehension, confidence, and a hint of amusement at the way the world often underestimated those who remained quiet. Ryan's mind traced back through the events of the day, recalling the subtle corrections, the nuanced guidance, and the poise she had displayed under pressure, each moment building a narrative of competence and authority that had left a lasting impression. Madison adjusted the strap of her portfolio one last time before turning toward the elevator doors, the soft light highlighting the calm determination etched into her features. Ryan knew that this evening was more than a single encounter. It was a demonstration of mastery and subtlety, the kind of presence that could command attention and respect without raising a voice, leaving him with a lingering sense of anticipation, an awareness that the true depth of her abilities and the full scope of what she could accomplish were only beginning to be revealed, and that the story unfolding between them was far from over, promising revelations and challenges yet to come. The lobby lights of the hotel glimmered against the polished marble floor as Madison Blake and Ryan Caldwell approached the glass doors leading to the street, the distant sounds of traffic and occasional sirens blending into the soft hum of the city evening. Madison's stride was measured, her shoulders relaxed, yet carrying an unspoken authority that had grown even more evident over the course of the day. Ryan fell into step beside her, his gaze occasionally flicking to her face, noting the calm assurance in her expression, the subtle intelligence reflected in her blue eyes, and the quiet confidence that seemed to command attention without a single demand. The air carried the faint scent of evening rain and exhaust from passing cars, yet Madison moved through it with deliberate grace, her mind already reviewing the day's events, the negotiations, the subtle cues she had interpreted, and the precise control she had maintained over each interaction. Ryan's thoughts traced the rhythm of her movements, the way she had anticipated responses, navigated complex conversations, and transformed potential confusion into clarity, leaving everyone around her reassured and impressed. Madison paused briefly at the curb, adjusting the strap of her portfolio and scanning the flow of pedestrians, subtly guiding them to cross safely, her awareness extending far beyond the immediate. Ryan could not help but admire the quiet way she managed not only situations but the perceptions of those observing, her intellect evident in every gesture and word. As they reached the taxi waiting to take him back to his office, Madison handed him the organized set of documents, her movements precise, fluid, and composed, her calm presence grounding the surrounding chaos. Ryan accepted the papers, noting the neatness and care in which they had been arranged, a reflection of the same meticulous attention that had guided the negotiation itself. He looked at her once more, a subtle smile of recognition crossing his features, the kind that acknowledged skill, intelligence, and quiet power, yet left room for curiosity and future encounters. Madison gave a small nod in return, a gesture that was both professional and deeply expressive, a silent acknowledgement of accomplishment and understanding, her influence lingering in the space between them even as she stepped back to allow the taxi doors to open. The soft roar of the city enveloped them, a reminder that the evening was far from over, that the world outside the controlled environment of the boardroom still moved unpredictably, and yet Madison's calm mastery had reshaped Ryan's understanding of authority, competence, and presence. As the taxi pulled away, he watched her blend back into the crowd of evening pedestrians, her figure composed and purposeful, leaving him with a quiet anticipation that their paths would intersect again, that the lessons of this day would echo long after the doors of the building closed behind them, and that the story of her quiet brilliance and measured influence was only beginning to unfold, hinting at challenges and triumphs yet to come.